I'm pretty sure I introduced myself to all of you, but just in case you've forgotten, I'm Beth Almarini, and I'm from the States. In my professional life, I am a hospice nurse and an end-of-life doula. I'm also a long-term student of Jason's and now a teacher of Kabbalistic Healing. And I'm very excited to be sharing that with all of you.
Thank you, Beth. My name is Tadeja Tabita Bradaš. I am pretty sure everybody here really knows me, or at least have heard about me. Except I see here Anna. I think we know each other, but I'm not sure. So I would like to introduce myself anyway. So my name is Tadeja Tabita Bradaš, and I'm from Slovenia. And like Beth, I have been a long-term student involved with a Society of Souls and Nondual Kabbalistic Healing, first as a student and later as apprentice and again student of teacher training. And I'm honored and blessed to have Beth as my co-teacher, and that we are a team that are bringing this amazing work created by Jason Schulman to this part of the world, because this is going to happen for sure. So Beth.
Okay, so before we begin officially, let's just all take the time to bring ourselves all the way here so that we can actually be in the presence of one another. So you can more fully absorb the material we're going to present. So I'd like to invite you to silence or to even put aside your phones and messaging apps and other distractions, and to be fully here. As we've done before, today's webinar will include lectures, meditations, and time for sharing, which I know sharing can bring up feelings of vulnerability, but we know that all healing takes place in the context of relationships. So being vulnerable together helps to develop that. And, Tadeja.
Yeah, before we start, I have an announcement to make. When we announced this webinar, we promised you that we will teach you healing of immanence today. And then as we prepared all the material, we realized that it's just too much of that material to be squeezed into. I mean, we were trying to squeeze 6 2-hour workshops into 3 2-hour workshops. And we finally realized that's a no-go. So we split what was originally planned for today into 2 parts. And we will today work with ego and healing and suffering. And next time we will go into prayers and healing of immanence. I hope you will not hate us because of that. It's just
there's so much material, and it's just, all of it is so beautiful, and trying to condense it, I feel like you'd be missing so much. And I really do hope you'll indulge us. This is the first time that we've done this in this squeezed in format, so it's kind of inevitable. But we're not perfect. And so hopefully it will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're okay with that. Aren't we, Beth, with being imperfect?
So, all right, so let's invite that in. Let's do a little bit of a meditation. You can close your eyes if you like, and just silently be with your breathing for a few minutes. Your intention in this meditation is to invite everything in. All of the parts of yourself, the small, frightened parts, the courageous parts, the selfish parts, and the devoted parts. Say to yourself, you, the selfish one, come in, be here. You, the one who remembers God from time to time, please come in. You, the imperfect one, please come in. Whatever comes into your mind or into your heart, whether it is some form of insight or some suffering, it does not matter. Simply recognize it and invite it in. And when you're ready, come back, bring yourself back to the room.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. Before I go into lecture, I would like to do two things. The first one is at the end of this webinar, if we don't finish it before 7 p.m. Central European Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Jason Schulman and his wife Arlene are opening the space for a short meditation for the war crisis in the world. And if we are still together, I suggest that we join that meditation for 5 minutes. It's not an online meeting. It's just everybody can do it in their home, dedicate a couple of minutes of that time. And before we continue, I would also like just to dedicate a couple of moments. Just, go inside and find a place of peace and compassion, and maybe pain and fear, whatever comes. It's a difficult time. Maybe your focus is on your own safety. Maybe your focus is on the safety of people that are fleeing from their homes because they don't feel safe. Maybe your thoughts are for the soldiers who have to fight against each other, and they're, some of them, just boys, not really knowing what's going on. I just want to honor and be with everyone that is suffering today. And before we jump into the lecture that I hope you will find as exciting as Beth and I do, I would just, want to know, how are you? How's your day? How was your period between last webinar and today? Anybody, please open your mics, say something, interact with us. We will give you much more if you interact with us.
I'm the brave one. I love to interact. So I have tears again in my eyes. I feel a lot of pain and sadness, but at the same time, there is a lot of flow going through me. I feel the spring. I feel excitement in my belly. It's like mating time, what I feel. But as well, I feel this sadness and pain, my heart like very squeezed feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel happy at the same time. So,
great.
Yeah.
Great,
So maybe,
Brina.
Yeah, that's
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anybody else? Where are you, courageous people?
Antwerp, Belgium.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Anna.
Hi.
Is this Anna or Anne?
People call it in really different ways, Could be Anna, depends if I'm in America or in the middle of Antwerp.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome, Anna. I don't know if you have finished, but you are muted. Maybe you muted yourself accidentally. Okay.
Yes. Basically, I found the information in the dictionary of massage about the Jason. And here I'm doing like healings, massages, also tantric healing. So I found it really interesting to learn more about Kabbalah, because in the past I was reading a few books and I reviewed the website. So I would really love to learn more, but I think it's a third part, I think, for the
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
It's late, so I need to catch up a few things. In the meantime, I'm waiting for the book of Jason's about the Kabbalistic teaching. I ordered it. It's flying from Amsterdam, so I'm ready to study.
Great.
Yep.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? Good to have you here, Anna. I'm happy.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Irma.
Good morning. Well, it's morning here. I'm not sure what time it is where the rest of you guys are. I'm happy to be here. It's been an interesting month-ish. You know, I feel very torn apart about the war and feeling impotent for the most part, and doing what I can to, you know, pray. And I'm loving that Jason is doing, that we're doing that meditation at 1. And I don't know if you guys want to send out the 2 steps of the Magi that he wants us to focus on. You know, my life has been up and down, but certainly my struggles are my own struggles, but nothing, you know, in comparison to what's going on in the rest of the world. I must admit, I'm a little disappointed we're not doing healing of imminence, but that's okay. Not meant to be today, apparently, and that's okay. And I texted Beth earlier today. I may be off and on and in and out because I have painters in the house. So excuse me if I come and go, but I am happy to be here with you all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Irma. And you gave me actually a great clue to just say a couple of words. You said your personal problems are nothing, you know, in comparing to what people are going through in the war zone. I wouldn't totally agree with that.
Yeah, I know you disagree.
Yeah, because our own pain is actually the worst pain we are feeling and enduring and trying to heal. And yes, of course, as human beings, we tend to compare with we are more, we are less, we are more, we are less. But it's also important to honor ourselves. This is how I suffer. And it's important for me. And when we land at this place that my suffering is as important to me as something that I may think it's more horrible, or someone that I may think or convince myself that suffers more, the healing actually starts. It starts with relating with our own suffering. That's what I wanted to say. And I thank you, Irma, that you've opened actually this place.
Good segue.
Well, you know, I also want to say, I mean, I work with hospice patients, people with cancer, people with all manner of diseases that are dying. But that doesn't mean, you know, if I go out and break my arm, that somehow that's less, you know, just because someone is suffering in some other way doesn't negate whatever pain we happen to be in. So it's a good thing to remember.
It's a lot of both and.
Right.
Which brings me to my topic, because I will share some thoughts and ideas and truths about the ego. Because the path of non-dual Kabbalistic healing is also the path of healing the ego. And in order to understand the universes that we've talked about in our first 2 webinars, remember we talked about Asiya, Yetzirah, Bria. So in order to understand the universes and ourselves within the universes, in order to understand our lives, our existence, it is necessary to connect the understanding of the ego in the universes. And I draw you some diagrams, and I will draw them again a little later, the diagrams of the ego through lenses of different universes. And why is it so important to understand what ego actually is? Well, one of the things is that without ego, we don't have our personal self. We don't have awareness of being an individual being that lives in the finite body and is simultaneously manifestations of the spirit beyond death. It's actually the whole universe. Also, our ego is a good tool to navigate through the world. After all, we are living in a dual world. We are living in the world of physical matter where things have very specific and very dense shapes. And it's important to understand how to navigate through this world and how to navigate through the part of the world that is not so dense, like our emotions, our thoughts, our spirit. Our ego exists in both unhealed and healed, or better say healing state. And the main task, it's actually only one, of us as human beings is that we develop a healthy ego, that we are healing the ego. So let me share my whiteboard and draw you again the three basic shapes of our ego from the perspective of different universes. I'll use different colors for each. So these are the shapes of our ego from my left to right. I don't know if that's the same for you. The green one is the ego in Asiya, the blue one is the ego in Yetzirah, and the reddish one is the ego in Bria. They all show us a different perspective, different state of our mind, our relation, our awareness. The first one is very much into itself. The second one goes on some path and research, but at the end ends up in a finite place. And the ego in Bria is totally open. It's constantly flowing, is moving from one place on this curve to another. So do you have any questions here or thoughts? Okay, so let us look first what is unhealed ego. The unhealed ego believes it has a separate existence only apart from everything else. Now, being separate, is one of the facts of our human lives. But our unhealed ego actually believes that that is the only reality. And that's why we get into trouble. In the perspective of the universe, that would be the only version of the universes. Remember when we were talking about all three universes, we said we can have integrated Asiya and we can have Asiya only. We can have integrated Yetzirah or Yetzirah only, and the same for the Bria. Do you remember what would be the, let's say, Bria only version? Can anybody share with me what would that be?
Isn't it only just being in this flow, but really not connected to being present to the more material and day-to-day stuff of life, because you're just constantly expansive and sort of blissed out, but it's just one part of the wholeness. So it's also limiting in, even though it's, yes.
Yes, wonderful. You got it, Lily. Yeah, Bria only is when people just want to be only happy or only, spiritual, not really connected with this earthly form, with the physical life, with the also pain and suffering. But in the practice of non-dual Kabbalistic healing, we believe that it is necessary to heal the ego and to include it as a part of the divine. In comparison to some other spiritual teachings and traditions, and also I have seen this in several techniques or methodology of personal growth, that they are oriented towards the idea that we need to dissolve the ego or get rid of it, or even transcend it to some higher vibrations or higher energies. In non-dual Kabbalistic healing, we actually do the opposite. We are moving towards more integration, more inclusion of the ego into the wholeness. Jason says in his instruction manual for receiving God, one of the seed passages goes like this. The personal self is beauty itself, a piece of beautiful God manifestation turning in the sparkling light, newly fallen on its temporary, tender, and newly existent self. Many spiritual paths ask us to leave the ego, the sense of a separate personal self, behind. They ask us to find the place where they believe the ego does not exist. But everywhere I look in the universe, from the farthest galaxy to the smallest vibrating strings creating the harmony of the quark and proton, I see the beauty that can only be uttered in the language of separateness. The problem is not in the ego, but in the fact that the ego does not see itself as the beauty it truly is. O reader, let yourself heal into yourself. Just try and absorb these words. The ego does not see itself as the beauty it truly is. Do you see yourself, how beautiful you are? Of course you have problems. Of course you have, you're critical towards yourself. Of course you have parts that you don't like, that you would like to hide or erase or do whatever with them. But can you see yourself, how beautiful you are?
Some days easier than others. Depends on the
Yes.
time and
Yes.
and so on.
That's
But yes, of
exactly,
course.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. Some days is difficult than the others. That's already the step into the healing. You know, relating with the fact that things are changing. Some days is easier than others. So the healing that we want to do for ourselves points in the direction of changing the nature of it. So not to get rid of the ego, but change the nature of our ego. And I'll explain a little what this really means. But first, I want to answer the question, why? Why would we want to change the nature of our ego? Because the unhealed ego is a roadblock to seeing the wholeness of the world, not just ourselves, but of everything. And at the same time, it's necessary. It is that we have relationship with our unhealed ego, because it is the unhealed ego in its woundedness and brokenness that sets us on the healing path, that generates the need for healing, that highlights the path of healing. Because I don't know of a person who would go on the path of healing unbroken. They are mutually co-arising. Our brokenness, our pain, our suffering, our woundedness, and the healing. But when our unhealed ego is in charge, it prevents us from knowing we are one with reality, one with God. It prevents us to see that we are more than just the idea, because our unhealed ego is actually an idea of who we are, not who we really are. The unhealthy ego only knows separateness and tries to maintain this separateness in the face of a much subtler truth. What would be such separateness? The idea of our separateness only. I will never learn foreign language. I'm not good at languages. That's something that I will never do. This is one very mild belief. It doesn't really, or it may, it depends on circumstance, really creates pain and suffering in my life if I believe that I'm not capable of doing something. And it separates me from a lot of things. At the same time, this separate only world needs to be maintained, controlled. So our unhealed ego wants to control reality. It wants to choose what it likes and what it doesn't like. And most of all, our unhealed ego wants to bury our feelings of being uncomfortable, not satisfied, not happy, anxious. Do you know about these places in yourself, uncomfortable places that you want to get rid of? Yeah, just raise your hands, and maybe if you want to share, you can open your mic.
Yeah.
Yeah. every time when we talk about healing the ego instead of getting rid of it, we are actually touching the place of wholeness that already exists in the human ego, in the human being. That's the beauty of this work that I really love. That we are not aiming for something out there, something that seems to be unreachable, that we would have to really, invest a lot of our time and energy and I don't know what to get there. And there's no guarantee to get there because nobody really knows what is out there. Like I said before, the NKH is actually going towards ourselves, towards the inside. And the healing ego is already the part of us. It's not that we have to reinvent it. We actually have to remember, recall what is already here. Healing the ego returns our ego to its natural state, returns it into relationship with everything and into being in the relationship. And it's important to understand that healing the ego is not a thing. It is an ongoing process. And it is the path of returning to our basic nature. And before I go a little further into what is our basic nature, I would like to read a couple of more quotes from Jason's instruction manual for receiving God. He says like this: the human ego is like the particle of earth, a condensation of the particular within the great expanse of the universe. It is what the beauty of this world is made from. Without it, the entire journey from separateness to oneness would not be possible. The dynamics of human life would disappear. Seeing and being seen would never arise. Brokenness and healing would never come into being. I think that's so beautiful. The entire journey from separateness to oneness would not be possible. Seeing and being seen would never arise. He goes further into his book. God has never made a mistake in creating individual egos over and over again. And I really would love that you remember this sentence. God has never made a mistake in creating individual egos over and over again. We make mistake in not knowing how to integrate these egos and heal them. Gratefulness is the heart of a well-lived life. Without gratefulness, our lives have no meaning. With gratefulness, we discover that all the meanings of life come down to this ability to feel grateful. The human ego, when healed, is the best vehicle for feeling this central aspect of our being. I'm sure that if Jason would write this book today, he would say the human ego, when healing, is the best vehicle for feeling this central aspect of being. Because that's a very important thing to know. There is no end point of where you could arrive and say, yeah, I have healed my ego. I won the first prize. That's the way to do it. Now I can lay down, you know, and do nothing for the rest of my life. That is not really possible. And then I would have students and clients that would then go into, okay, if you can't really come to this end point, so, you know, why are you doing it? I mean, don't you get tired if there is no end point? I can promise you that it gets more beautiful being in this ongoing process all the time. It gets easier. You actually start loving this kind of work. Yeah. So how are you doing? Yeah, one thumb up. Just give me thumbs up or hands up if you're okay. Yeah, great. Great. Yeah. It's important to know that the healing ego is the portion of the whole of God, of Buddha nature, however you want to name this, that we carry around, not only as owners, but also as caretakers. There are two important elements in this statement. One, I have already talked about. The healing ego is already part of us. It's not something that we will earn as the prize after going on a quest. And the second one is that it is our privilege and responsibility that we build healthy relationship with our healing ego as a caretakers. It's actually like, you know, relationship with our bodies. More we are taking care of our bodies, healthier we are. If we exercise, if we eat healthy, if we don't abuse too many substances. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, the path of healing ego is the path of returning to our basic nature. And when I say our basic nature, I mean that we are made of flesh and bones, with blood circulating through us, that we are separate beings, that we are foolish beings with flaws and imperfections. And we are the pulse of the universe moving through creation at the same time. We are foolish beings and we are great. We are small and we are magnificent. We fall down and we get up. I've always admired this truth. We fall down and we get up in children when they learn how to walk. I mean, their endurance, their perseverance, they are just falling down and getting up. And then they start walking. And I believe that this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing, the biggest achievement of every human being ever. And that is what we carry around all our lives. That persistent, that energy of falling down and getting up, of falling down and getting up. And we need help, we need healing to remember this. And this is what non-dual Kabbalistic healing is about. To remember that we are this person, that we are this being that falls down and gets up again and again and again. And it's important to remember that we cannot do this alone. No one can do this alone. We need each other. We need teachers and we need friends. We need community. Because when our ego is being healed, when we are on this healing path of healing the ego, the world looks different. It looks different because we no longer see through limited eyes. We have less and less needs to defend ourselves from our flaws to be seen. And then we have the possibility of freedom. The freedom that our sages in the past have called liberation, awakening, enlightenment, or you can say God realization. And all this is still valid today in the same quality and intensity. I think that's amazing, this possibility of freedom, of real freedom. The healing ego is held in common by all sentient beings, and it appears in every aspect of the manifested world. It's the same as the urge to be. You can see it in plants, in animals, even in rock, in rivers. Our healing ego is the desire to exist. And we all have it. We are made of it. And it's also true, I totally agree with Jason when he says that we must take ego very seriously, and then again, not too seriously. It's like a child's play. A child's play is very serious, you know. When your little girl is playing with her little, you know, teacups and pots and imaginary, you know, ladies coming to her tea shop, she's very serious. And at the same time, it's just a play. That's the relationship we would like to build with our ego. So how are you doing? Are you okay? Are you breathing? That was a lot.
Yeah, I would like to share. It made me cry. It made me cry. Yeah. The point of like believing that you again, even if you fall, it's deeply touching me.
Yeah.
It's like
Brina, there's some background noise. We don't really hear you well. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, but I agree what you say.
It's, we heard enough to know that it was
Yes.
touching.
Anyone else? So I have a couple of more things that I would like to say. And one is, why do we actually want to heal the ego? You know, because we want to be able to connect with ourselves, with others, with the world, with life. No one really wants to live a separate life, alone, you know, hidden somewhere. Because if we don't connect first with ourselves and then others, world, life, we are only strengthening the false self. And we all needed to create some false self in order to survive the slings and arrows of our difficult childhood. It was important then, and it is important now. By the time we arrive to understanding the most integrated universe of Bria that really integrates Yetzirah and Asiya, our ego is being healing. These are not separate processes, it's one and the same process. The healing of the ego and arriving into the consciousness of Bria. If I go back to the ego shapes, I hope they're still on my whiteboard so I don't have to draw them again. Yes, they are. If we look now for a moment only to the shape of the ego in Bria, in this diagram, the ego doesn't bend back to itself. It has no directional arrows. And it's not tied to a particular direction. When we come to the level of understanding the potential and the truth of this, what's presented here in this diagram, and there's a lot more that cannot be described with such a simple graphic. We also understand the Shema. The Shema in Jewish tradition is both. Is the prayer, and it's the profound statement that reminds us of the oneness of reality. And if any of you speaks Hebrew, please don't be too harsh on me. I don't speak Hebrew, but I will read the original sentence in Hebrew, and it goes like Shema Israel. Adonai Elohenui Adonai Echad. In traditional translation, it would go like this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord of God, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And I would like to emphasize here that the Shema doesn't talk about one God, which is very often interpreted, mistaken in many religions, including traditional Hasidic Kabbalah, Islam, Roman Catholic church, and many more. No, this statement talks about the God is one. Jason translated this same statement like this. Hear all of you who are wrestling with the nature of reality. Reality is one. A wholeness which is so complete, so one, that it includes two. And this is where we are heading. Today, next time, and in 4 years of training for those who will join us. And we'll talk about prayers more next time. And now, Beth, you know what, Beth, do you need a minute or two to stretch? I feel like I really...
was just going to say, everybody stand up and, you know, move around a little, just to kind of, it's a lot of heavy material, right?
Yeah.
So here, look, I'll even stand up and, you know, do it too, just to kind of relax.
Just stretch a little, or, you know, move your hips or shoulders, or make a step to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, whatever.
Everybody turn their cameras off. Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if we're all stretched out and a little energized, there's just two things that I want to say. First of all, please interrupt me. Sometimes I get tired of hearing my own voice, so it's nice if people have questions or whatever. Please feel more than free. And I just want to say, in some of what I talk about, you know, I talk about God, and I know that some people, it's a concept that doesn't really land well with them. So whatever you want to substitute for God is fine. You know, sorry, Buddha, nature, the whatever, feel free. I don't want the idea of God to trip people up, you know. So, all right, we've been looking at the 4 Kabbalistic universes, which you're probably getting to know pretty well by now. And it's all very interesting and very intriguing. But the question, again, is why? Why do we talk about them, and why are they important? So I'm going to talk about suffering and healing from the point of view of the different universes. And it's important because even though we know, we keep emphasizing that they're all kind of intertwined with one another, and all of them are holy, we tend to live as if they're separate. And we experience suffering and healing differently within each of them. So knowing about this helps us understand the cause of our suffering and the means of healing it. So when we are in Asya only, remember, Asya is the world of manifestation, the world of physical manifestation. So when we just are there only, we're not whole enough to be able to see that God is in every physical manifestation. And this causes us suffering. We feel that God is always elsewhere, somewhere other than here. And duality reigns in Asya. So we divide the world up into the duality of good and bad, holy, unholy, positive, and negative. When we suffer in Asya, we have one goal and one goal only, just to make the suffering go away and to get past it. And here in this universe, suffering often takes the form of physical issues. So healing in Asya only then is about fixing things. And it's all about allopathic medicine, medication, surgery, hands-on type of modalities like chiropractic or physical therapy. In other words, there is a diagnosis and there is a prescription to heal it. Of course, this kind of healing is completely necessary and completely sacred. After all, if a bone is broken or we have some sort of raging infection, or God forbid, we've been shot, we want the cast or the antibiotics or the surgery because nature needs a helping hand in these cases. The problem comes because allopathic medicine does not always consider other aspects of healing, the emotional, spiritual, or the psychological. So if you're only considering one aspect of healing, the physical healing, it's not really going to be it's not going to really fully and completely heal something. So for example, giving a person medication, say, to control schizophrenia is helpful and really important. But if the other aspects of the illness aren't addressed, such as, their family dynamics, their living situation, all of these things, you can't really say a person is actually healed. Maybe a better example, when I am taking care of patients who are in a lot of pain, we can give them pain medication to take it away. But if they're suffering about their pain is also the feeling that they're a bad person, or they somehow deserve it, or this is some sort of punishment, if we don't address those things, they're not really fully healed. Does that make sense? Okay, good. I love head nodding and, thumbs up and whatever. So great. In Yetzirah, which is where we try to interpret the meaning of things, we still split the world up, but we do it in kind of a different way. We look into the world of the unseen and begin to have a different relationship to pain and suffering. We understand that suffering can continue even while we're involved with doing our personal work, searching for God and meeting. And we begin to recognize that suffering is a valuable part of the process of moving us in the direction of exploration. I mean, really, how many times do people explore their emotional and psychological selves when they're not in crisis? I know I never did. Any of you? Yeah, no, it's not really the typical thing at all. So in Yetzirah, we come to believe the idea that there is some reason for the pain that we're experiencing, be it external, internal, historical. So we start to believe that the healing is somehow justified. Not that that makes it, oh, okay, it's all right, but that there's some reason for it. So healing in Yetzirah really looks like all manner of psychological and emotional type of therapies. It consists of exploring, learning about, starting to understand our past wounding and emotions and the reasons for our responses to events in our lives. Why is it that I react with anger to minor frustrations? Why do I get involved in unhappy relationships? Why am I sad all the time, even though I have a good life? This kind of work too is important and sacred and very necessary. But just as with Asya, approaching all suffering from only this perspective can be problematic. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous to think that working through why you're drawn to risky activities or how sad you are that now you have to miss your vacation is going to actually mend your broken leg, right? You need both types of healing together. Does that make sense too? Yeah. Okay, good. Oh, Charles, did you have a question, or are you just like saying hi? I don't know that symbol.
I have a question.
Oh yes, please.
I'm kind of backtracking to the word crisis, because you were there a few sentences ago.
Right.
And I'm curious about the nature of crisis. How do you define crisis? Or let me rephrase that then to be more helpful. Is the crisis necessarily obvious to the person at the time?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I mean, that's a good point. It doesn't have to be some sort of, well, I was going to say some sort of crisis. It doesn't have to be some sort of really like obvious thing that's obvious to you. But it's still something that causes you to seek other answers to questions.
That kind of make that. Sorry, Tadeja. That kind of starts to make sense when you say it's something that makes you seek answers to something else. It's a simple. The word crisis is as simple as that in this context, at least, which is great. I can figure that one out then. Yes, that works for me.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Sorry, Tadeja.
Yeah, I just wanted to add here, many times this crisis we perceive as discomfort, not being happy, not being satisfied, being annoyed, that kind of thing. We usually, especially at the beginning, we wouldn't call it a crisis. We wouldn't be aware of, like that. I just wanted to add this. Go on back.
Okay. All right. So we'll look at the world of Bria now. In the world of Bria, everything is allowed to exist. Our primary suffering and the secondary suffering that we add on top of it. Judgment and its opposite, acceptance. Both closed-heartedness and open-heartedness. Now, when we are not in Briatic consciousness, we may be very attached to being open-hearted. Okay, we enjoy being open-hearted and believe it is good. We want to avoid being closed-hearted. We can't allow that to exist in a way. But in the same way, when we are closed-hearted, we can't access our open-heartedness if we don't allow them both to exist, right? When we are not in Briatic consciousness, neither condition can exist simultaneously. But when we have a Briatic consciousness, we understand that closed-heartedness and open-heartedness are both fully present because they mutually co-arise. How is it that I can even recognize my open-heartedness if I can't recognize what it is to be closed-hearted? So there is no light without dark, no joy without sorrow. So in Bria, we're able to hold these opposites together without separation. So they both exist, and they both exist in light. When we can cultivate a Briatic attitude, which, as Tadeja said, is not an end point, it's a process. But when we can when we have that Bradash attitude, we're in that space, we realize that suffering is the result of duality and separation from God, our Buddha nature, or from life, with a capital L. We can allow our suffering to exist without running or hiding from it, without glorifying it. And that suffering then becomes the vehicle for our healing, our freedom, because it is both a real and a truthful part of life. From this space, we understand that as we attempt to avoid our existential suffering, to not feel it, to not see it, it creates more suffering for ourselves and also more suffering for the world. Remember, everyone and everything, either manifest or unmanifested, is intimately connected and are part of the whole. And so our personal healing is important because it does not only heal ourselves, but it helps to heal the world. So in some ways, although this is the most simple thing in the world, in some ways it can sound sort of mystical and, esoteric. And that can lead, as it always does when splitting off one of the universes, to a problem, which is the problem of a spiritual bypass, which today is sort of referenced earlier too. The idea that, well, it's all good. I'm going to be one with suffering. I'm going to be one with everything. We don't want to stay on the mountain in ecstasy. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. We risk, when we get to that space, that spiritual bypass, what we risk is jumping over. We jump over doing the work of Asya and Yetzira to get to some special, spiritual state because we want our suffering to stop. Well, it's not going to stop by bypassing everything else. We still have to do our work. And in this non-dual path, we understand that we need to walk towards our suffering instead of running from it. Because allowing it to exist is to allow it to exist in light. And that is the only way that our suffering is fully healed. And again, we're foolish beings. And we go back and forth in our healing journey, right? It's like waves in the ocean, they come up and they're there and you're like, yes, I understand this. This is, yes. And then, they go back into the ocean and you're thinking, oh, what does all this mean? And so it's not an endpoint. It's just a constant sort of flow. And the 4-year class is where we can really explore these concepts much more deeply and experientially. This is kind of, the overview, the summary, but I hope you can tell just from, my speaking about it, that it is, it's precious. It is a precious place to be in and precious understanding to have, and a true path to healing both our suffering and the suffering of the world. Questions? Did I lose anybody? Or have I knocked you all speechless?
I think that's exactly, because it's, I would just say everything rings so true inside. But I would just like to give it a bit of a moment because it's a lot. But it was beautiful. So thank you.
Mhm.
It's funny because I actually feel like physical reactions in the body also, just by listening, just to being present to it. And a very strong pull to, especially going towards suffering is, it's funny how, exactly like Tadeja said, it can be an end point. So it's this constant wave of ups and downs, and yeah. Okay, I'm blabbling on a bit.
Okay. No. I mean, it is such an opposite thing to what, what people generally tend to do, right? Who wants to run towards suffering? I know I spent a lot of my life trying to do anything to avoid it, but it doesn't work ultimately.
It's also important, maybe, Beth, to emphasize that the program of 4 years is designed so that you also build muscles that help you do the work.
Right.
It's really a very complex process. It may look simple, but it's very complex. Because that's also important. You know?
Well, and that it's work that, you don't have to do alone. In the context of a class, of a group of people, there's just more support and more, more support, more people that understand.
My experience has been the only way to do this work is in community, and to have that support, and to be able to face our suffering with others who are there with us doing their own work. It's an amazing school and program. Changed my life completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I would like to say is, like, when we try to run away from suffering, actually we are still suffering. We are suffering the whole time.
Yep.
And it's just getting worse and worse because we have this inner conflicts and we feel that there is something wrong. And so I think that's a very wise thing to decide to go towards suffering, because that's the only way. It's the way through is the only way. Right. Otherwise, you just prolong everything.
You prolong it, and you just put more suffering on top of it. Right? It just it gets to be bigger.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a hiding place.
I'm sorry?
I don't think there's a hiding place.
No, not really, no.
But wherever you go, it will follow.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run away from it.
Right. It's like, who is this man? John Kabat-Zinn, has a book that says, wherever you go, there you are. And it's the same with your suffering. Wherever you go, there it is.
Yeah, and what I really find is that when you do this step and you go towards your suffering, this is like a really big thing. Mm-hmm. And you really have to have a lot of courage and also patience with yourself, because what I experienced is that at some point it's just I had a feeling, or I have a feeling, will this ever end? Or like, I can't stand myself anymore, or like to be with this suffering or with this cause or whatever. It's like very big thing to just stay with it and stay there and just go further and not give up. I think this is one of the most powerful things also, I think, to realize you have to stand up, like Tadeja said before. You fall, but you always have to stand back up.
Right.
And it's important, and you've somehow mentioned this, Jolanta. I just want to, open this space a little bit and be more specific with words. It's also important to understand that you can't avoid it, you can't run away, and yet we all are still trying to do that again and again and again. It's like in our tradition of the school, when we have the meetings, all school meetings, there is one day, extra day before officially the meeting starts, is dedicated. This one day is dedicated to this practice. It's called running and returning.
Yeah, and this is probably something also very important, that you give yourself a break.
Yes.
You can't dive all the time deep. You have to get out and like to have a break, and then you can go back in.
Right.
And we have a very good remedy for doing that in our tradition. You know how it's called? Kindness. It's called kindness. And it's one of the holding together elements of the school, of the community, of the work itself. And it's also, it's co-arising with the whole movement towards suffering, because closer you come, more you can relate with your own kindness.
True.
And stronger you are to go closer.
And actually, I just remember the sign, like this wave going up and down. This is exactly that. It's like diving in and coming up again. Yeah.
What I also found really beautiful also is Beth, when you talked about how we can hold both aspects, because that's what I think also is the most, that aha moment in suffering, when there's this release of either convulsions in the body, of the pain or something, when you're going through it. And then that real beauty when, also in the beginning, when we were talking about war now in Ukraine, it's also both can take place at the same time. There's horrors happening, and we can hold that and also hold the beauty of everything else. So that kind of in the Bria concept, what I found the most intriguing also, because through the most suffering, at the same time, there's so much beauty, and they're always simultaneous, always together.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot have one without the other.
And it breaks your heart, but it opens it at the same time. So interesting.
Yeah.
I'm having a bit of reactions. So
yes.
Yeah, it's nearly like through the pain that we are experiencing right now, it's only because of that we can also see the beautiful aspects, like people helping people. It's like, yeah, this just makes it possible. I don't know, like.
Yes. It's true. I'm so touched with your sharing, the depth of it and truth. Are we ready to move on? Beth, are we ready? Yeah, for the last part.
The last part.
You forgot we talked about doing diets.
Yes, that is, I did not forget that. I thought you were heading in a different direction, and I was worried that I didn't prepare something.
Yeah.
But no, yes, I'm ready for that. So we are going to do a little work, in pairs. Although I don't know. So people who have their screens off, are you there? Or like, and able to work with another person? Or how about we do this? I cannot, I have no microphone. Oh, well, that's terrible. Oh gosh, imagine not being able to, oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you're here anyway. So how about this? If you can participate, like do that little hand thing in your screen so that we know.
And I can go to Andrew because he's in the second, we live together.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that works then.
Yeah. So I'll just exclude him.
Okay. All right. Ivana can't. I'm sorry if that. Okay. Anna can. Brina, you're driving. So, okay.
Sorry, do we need to close mics? Do we
You
need to
need
mute?
No. We are just talking now how to get you into pairs where some people don't have mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jordana, you can.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. And Ivana can't. How about Irma? Are you there? I know she has painters. Charles, you're good? All right. How about you?
I'm going to have to go because of the painters. So this has been wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you for coming, Irma.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Irma.
This has been great. Thank you.
Okay. Have fun with the painters.
Yeah. Well, it's incredibly disruptive, but needs to be done, and it's going well, and they're amazing. So I'm grateful.
Good.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
So see, even painting is Briatic. They said the same thing, like my house was torn apart, but oh, the beauty. Okay, Charles, Ivana, no. Judy, can you work with another person?
Sure.
Okay, so
I'm not sure what we're doing. I had to go eat.
you don't have to worry about what we're doing. We will tell you all about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tadeja, you can you do the tech thing? Put people into rooms?
Yes,
so
I will.
What we'll do, we did it once before, and it's that exercise called Maintaining the World, where there two of you are together, and one person just speaks about whatever, whatever's on their mind, whatever's in their heart, whatever it is, and the other person just listens. That's it. You don't have to say anything or come up with any brilliant, comments, you just listen. And when the first person is finished speaking, all you have to do is say, I will remember this for you. And then we switch and, you reverse roles. So we will, I hope Tadeja will know how to do this and put this up in the chat so that you have directions, because if you're all in separate rooms, we can't really, it doesn't work that way
Yeah. I will send you to breakout rooms. Okay, Ivana, you said you can't use a microphone, so you can't have a pair. So then we are only with 9 persons. Beth, do you want to go in a pair with someone? Because I will do the things with technical stuff. Okay. Yeah. So I will text you in your breakout rooms when it's time to close one exercise, and then I will leave you a couple of minutes for sharing, and then I will text you again now, switch, and then I will text you again now and give you a couple of minutes to share, and then I will bring you back from breakout rooms. Okay, so off you go. I will text you when to stop, when to switch, when to stop. Have a great time.
Wait, does everybody remember the directions? Literally, one person speaks, the other person just listens and remembers. Okay, off we go.
Off you go. Okay, how was that? Yeah, some people are nodding. Anybody wants to share something?
Well, I'll share. It's very hard, and whether this is just me or what, it's very hard to shut up and to not respond to somebody. I just have this, wait, let me I'll fix that. No, to just let it be there and be quiet was challenging.
Was this challenging for somebody else too? To just be present and not trying to change and save the person on the screen or yourself. Branka.
I had a totally different challenge. When listening to Brina, you know that we had some technical difficulties.
Yeah.
So I just jumped in to her sharing, and all the time she was talking about the positive changes in her life and how she is blessed now, how she is learning to accept other people's help, etc., etc. And there was no point and no way were we coming to the point of the task. And I was asking her some questions, like trying to find where this I will now use simple words, problematic spot is, which I should remember for her. And suddenly I realized that all these changes and the new things which are happening in her life, that this is also something I can remember for her. This moment of her discovering something totally new, which was unknown to her, those baby steps she is now walking towards these changes, or on the path of change. But then you said, come back, and I missed sharing this with her, it was like a process in my mind. So Brina, if you are listening to me, this is something I'm going to remember for you, but also with you, because I think you want to remember this as well.
Beautiful, beautiful, and so true. And so true. Yeah.
I mean, why was such a big deal about saying to person that I'm seeing first time in a life and being like completely quiet, but actually say that to someone who said whatever he was feeling like, but what was the point to say like, I will remember that for you? Like, you know, I don't know that person, you know, but of course I was very compassionate about everything and I mean it, you know, but like with this exercise, what does it, like, what's behind it actually?
It has to do with connection and with relationship. And Tadeja, you can join in.
Yeah.
You know, it's called maintaining the world. And this is all right, I'm losing.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. This is one of the exercises that is actually challenging our how should I call it, adopted behavior, which we all have these parts in our life, in our adopted behavior, where we most of the time unconsciously jump into fixing things, jump into saving things, jump into intervene, into action. So the exercise is designed that we are actually completely passive. The only active thing that we do is, I will remember this. At the same time, when we say to the person, I will remember this to you, we are actually creating a very deep relationship. We are seeing that person. We are hearing that person. And in order to hear and see that person, we have to be fully present. And suddenly both of us are fully present. Does that make sense, Anna?
Yes, it does, especially like with my personality. I have, you know, always solution. I always have answer. So it was very helpful for me.
In some versions of this exercise, when we do it in person, we also advise people to try not to have facial expressions. You know, because sometimes when people are sharing with us and we go like, oh, so try to stay present in this kind of
neutral stance.
Yeah, neutral. Although I don't really like the word neutral, but I don't have time now to explain why. But yeah, Beth, in this non-responsive state and still being present.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. Charles,
to be seen and heard without judgment was how I felt it.
Yes.
Just to be,
exactly.
Total acceptance of that other person.
Yes.
Without seeking to fix anything.
Mm-hmm.
Holding them in presence.
Yes. And Charles, hold this thought. And all of you remember this thought, because it's very important for the healing of immanence that we will do next time. It's actually, this attitude is actually part of healing of immanence.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like now, Beth, although we can talk more after a couple of minutes, but I would like to invite you. It's 7 p.m. European time, 1 p.m. New York time. If we can just, close our eyes for a minute, and you can do whatever you want. You can pray, you can meditate, you can just breathe with the thought of the uncertainty of the situation in Europe. and the world right now. Let us take this minute. And slowly, in your own time, bring your attention back to this group, to this webinar, to this moment. Now, Beth, we still have a little energy for some questions. If people have questions or would like to share something. Like I said in one of our earlier webinars, praising is welcome as well.
In that case, let me praise you.
Or, you know,
And praise everybody, but I need to go. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Charles.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sending light and love to everybody.
Thank you, Judy. And kisses and hugs to you and Dark and your family. Yeah.
Thank you. Too.
Hope we can meet again in person soon.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a date for the next webinar already. Do you remember, Beth? Should I look at my calendar?
Hang on, I'll look at mine.
Because I didn't put it in. Did we say 9th of April?
I think we did. Let's see. It's not the 4th. I don't have it either. Shoot.
Yeah, it's 9th.
It's the 9th.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
1 week later is Easter.
Yeah, we can't have that.
Yeah. So see you on the 9th of April.
And we promise we'll teach you the healing then.
Yeah, that's like.
That's a promise.
Yeah. And I have one question. Since this will already be a daylight time and 5 p.m. for Europe will be actually really in the middle of the day. Would you like to have this webinar a little later so that your day is not, interrupted in the middle? Any ideas? Like today was fine with me. Thank you, Anna. If there are no other wishes, see you at 5 p.m. Central European Time, Daylight Time, and of course 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Eastern Daylight Time.
It'll be noon here.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, it was great spending time with you guys. I really loved your responses, your sharing, your questions, and hope to see you on the 9th of April.
Yeah.
And it's nice to meet people from all over the world too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it is. It is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.